Welcome home, Rep Pack. Marcus here, and welcome to Comfort Cartoons, the show where I collect absolutely everything from the late 90s, 2000s, all the way to the modern day. And I'm also trying to create the world's biggest Spongebob and Nickelodeon collection. And the creator of this channel happens to have her very own crossover with Spongebob.
Here you go. It's alphabet soup. I made it special.
It's a bootleg, but it works. But I hope you guys are having an amazing day, and if you guys aren't, you know the drill. Spongebob crossover moments. Camera flip.
What's wrong, Patrick?
I wanted to give out the next award!
You're just in time, Patrick. We're announcing it now.
It's about to get a whole lot brighter, Rep Pack, because today is going to be so much fun. You guys see, we have the Spongebob consumption setup over here. We have the Spongebob TV in the background, because today we are going to be talking all about Spongebob on television. And we're going to be talking about all the different times that Spongebob has appeared in other Nickelodeon shows. We're going to be looking back in time and seeing all the different shows on Nickelodeon that reference Spongebob. And some of them are so hidden you would never believe it. We're going to talk about some of the surface level ones a lot of people know, and we're going to talk about some of the deep ones that most people have never even seen. And make sure you subscribe, because the next one I'm going to be doing is a part of this two-part series. Is going to be all of these Spongebob appearances outside of Nickelodeon, talking about Cartoon Network, Disney, live action TV shows, anywhere Spongebob appears, we're going to be talking about it and checking it out together. And some of the clips we're going to be covering today are incredibly interesting, because if you guys don't know, the creator Steven Hillenburg of the show SpongeBob, an absolute legend, icon, and one of the most inspiring creators of all time, had a lot of golden rules when it came to making the SpongeBob show. And one of them is that he never did crossover episodes. You cannot really look back and find any SpongeBob crossovers except for one that we're going to be mentioning on this list today. But when you look at Nickelodeon as a whole, we've had several different crossovers. All Real Monsters and Rugrats had a crossover. Of course, iconically, everybody knows and remembers the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. There was 3 of them.
Jimmy Neutron, boy genius.
Timmy Turner. Boy.
We've had movies where they were a crossover, like the Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys, which of course were all made by the same animation team, but nonetheless, a theatrical crossover.
How about
So when it comes to crossovers, they are not anything new when it comes to Nickelodeon, but when you look at SpongeBob's history, he has never had that same treatment. He's Nickelodeon's golden child, and they've always just kind of kept him sacredly alone. And the confirmation of Steven not really preferring this goes back to a tweet that Vincent Waller tweeted back in 2017, just pretty much saying that Steven prefers not to do crossovers. So all the crossovers that have happened have all been from the other shows, just doing a nod or a reference to the SpongeBob series, and some of them happen to do it in such unique ways that it's actually kind of unreal. I can't wait to go over all of them with you guys. Without any further ado, I just wanted to explain to you why this is such a big deal, all these crossovers, because they never officially happened with the SpongeBob team. So they're all kind of little hidden Easter eggs throughout these Nickelodeon shows. So let's check them out. We're gonna start off with the first one, which is probably the only actual SpongeBob crossover episode, and that is the Big Time Rush and Patchy the Pirate crossovers. They actually never reference SpongeBob throughout the episode. Maybe some of you guys know about this crossover. We're gonna break it down from start to finish. So the episode starts out with Logan and Carlos actually on an adventure using a metal detector, just trying to find some treasure. And I've been there before.
There's probably another bottle cap.
Usually don't find a lot. Mostly a lot of beer caps and soda popper lid things. These things, you know what I'm talking about. But while they're looking for treasure, they actually end up detecting some metal, and that metal is none other than Patchy the Pirate's hook.
Me beach now! You're real pirates! Not just any pirate, Patchy the Pirate.
And then they go on an adventure looking for apparently Patchy's great-grandfather, Captain Scratchy.
Buried treasure? Ah, the treasure of me great-grandpappy Scratchy the Pirate. I got his map right here.
But after that, Patchy shows the map, and on the map you'll actually see a little palm tree island that looks very similar, at least, to Bikini Atoll, and you'll also see a starfish next to that same island. That could have just been a nod to the beach vibes of the map, but at the same time, the whole episode is a lot of fun, and is the only true crossover episode that we have with the SpongeBob series, and probably the biggest one we're gonna have on the list. The rest of the stuff is a little bit smaller in comparison, but also more hidden, and all very interesting in their own ways. So let's move on to the next one. Maybe some of you guys have seen this one before, and that is in Jimmy Neutron, in particular the special Jet Fusion. We know that Jimmy is not unfamiliar with the idea of crossovers, as I said, very iconically known for it. So in the episode, they are looking for the missing spy, Jet Fusion. And while they're hovering over in one of Jimmy's hovercrafts, they end up falling out of the air into the ocean. And when they land, they decide that they're going to continue by looking underwater without any scuba equipment or any of that stuff that they might need to go underwater. And unlike Jimmy flying through space, this one's not a secret. They actually show us that Jimmy invented some kind of bubble gum that gives them the ability to breathe underwater. And if you look at this gum, it's very familiar in shape and also in color. What are the odds that the breathe underwater gum is square and yellow? I'm just saying. But even bigger than that, once they dive into the water, they're on the lookout for a remote, and in the background you can see a certain pineapple under the ocean. It's very out of place and very obviously a reference to SpongeBob, and like I said, going back to that bubblegum as well, a lot of people will show that clip, but not the little details as well. And not just that, they also run into a man-eating clam that they have to get away from in a very Pac-Man-esque style, I might add. That clam sounds very similar and familiar to me to a certain clam that SpongeBob may have pissed off in an episode. So that whole reference is really, really cool, but to me, I also see this level to it is that if the idea of SpongeBob being underwater was the reason why there was no crossovers, maybe the Jimmy Neutron team was doing this maybe as a little bit of a suggestion to the SpongeBob team of like, hey, if the old issue is that they're underwater, our boy Jimmy can go underwater, we just gotta give him this gum. But I don't think that that argument is really the reason why there was no crossovers, because I mean, realistically, if they wanted to do one with Fairly Odd Parents, just have Timmy wish to breathe underwater. If they wanted to do one with Danny Phantom, just make some kind of aquatic ghost that they have to go after. There's so many different things they could have worked around. It's like animation, you can do anything. So I really think it comes down to the fact of them just wanting to keep the SpongeBob and Bikini Bottom universe kind of isolated in their own little world, which as a fan of SpongeBob, I really appreciate, because you don't have to worry about all the things that the other show creators may do or not do, or what political statements they may make on Twitter. It's only limited to the SpongeBob family, so you have a lot less risk as far as controversial thing coming into the show. But a very unique one that I thought was very cool that I wanted to put on this list. Even if it's one that's kind of more out there and known, I wanted to make sure that we break it down a little bit further on all the other little small details I feel like they added in. Another crossover that happened with Jimmy Neutron that wasn't in the show is actually a digital cable promotion where they're promoting digital cable, and Jimmy kind of explains the science of why digital cable would be better than regular old cable, and Squidward also helps with great enthusiasm as always.
Hi there, I'm Jimmy Neutron.
And I'm Squidward.
And if you're watching this, then you're watching digital cable.
Ooh, digital.
Jimmy really does have more than any other show, I feel like, when it comes to SpongeBob crossovers. There's also, I almost forgot to put it on the list, the Nicktoons Blast ride they had at Universal Studios, where you go on a ship with Jimmy and Goddard, fly through the Nickelodeon studios, and you see many different cartoon worlds. You see the Rugrats and many others, but the main one is you get to fly through Bikini Bottom.
Gotcha! Hey, I can't see!
Is it canon to the SpongeBob show? No. But within Jimmy's ride, this is another moment where Jimmy is interacting with Bikini Bottom. Really, like I said, on this list we go through today, Jimmy has the absolute most by far. And a little bonus is actually there is another crossover with Jimmy and SpongeBob where Jimmy actually had a little promotion going on during the early 2000s where he would kind of come up on screen. You guys know the little buffers for the next show up where they're like shoving each other and stuff. But in these promotions, Jimmy would come into the show and actually kind of transform things going on with the episode. And he actually did it to an episode of SpongeBob where he brought them into real life and made them puppets.
Promise, Mr. Krabs.
I need a sailor's promise. Repeat after me. Yo-ho, yo-ho. Near the hooks, I'll never go.
Yo-ho, yo-ho. Near the hooks, we'll never go.
And I gotta say, I think Jimmy was ahead of his time because later down the line of SpongeBob's future, they did make them puppets with the Jim Henson Company and several different special episodes. So, I mean, Jimmy probably planted the seed that became so many specials for SpongeBob and also its own Amazon series.
Praise the magic conch!
And that's not the only time Jimmy interrupts SpongeBob in specific. He also interrupts the Rip Pants episode in order to go back and play the iconic first pants rip. The joke may have gotten old for the rest of Bikini Bottom, but it didn't get old for Jimmy, it seems like, or Goddard, because they went back just to rewatch another pants rip. And I have to say, man, that was one of the coolest eras to live in, where you had little moments like that. And I'll never forget actually seeing those on TV at the moment, and again, just being mind blown at what I was watching. And since we talked about Jimmy, I think it's only fair we talk about the other Emmy, and that's Timmy. So the next one up is gonna be Fairly Odd Parents. The first one we're talking about comes in the episode of Wish Fixers, where Timmy wishes for running cheese pants. And Cosmo goes on to call him, well, this.
Come on, cheese boy Squarepants, make us proud!
That's a little small one, but it gets a little deeper in an episode where the Fairly Odd Parents go to Atlantis and they meet King Greg.
Although mostly our diet consists of crabs, starfish, and the occasional underwater squirrel.
The karate did not seem to help her one bit in this situation. And one that many of you guys have probably seen from the episode App Trap is where there's a particular kid that has SpongeBob's exact face pretty much, his eyes, his buck teeth, some freckles to kind of match with the spots as well. So if you ever wanted a Fairly Odd Parents SpongeBob crossover, that's probably as close as you're gonna get, is that kid. And also, Jimmy, Timmy, and SpongeBob all did appear in a video game, Nicktoons Unite, which those three together just make a great group though, if you ask me.
I'm Jimmy Neutron. Welcome to my lab.
This is amazing! He's a giant block of cheese!
Timmy, SpongeBob is a sponge from a place called Bikini Bottom.
But let's talk about one of Nickelodeon's modern shows that is a huge success as well, and that is The Loud House, another one of the shows that has probably one of the most references to SpongeBob, being that there's more than one. In the episode Left in the Dark, you can see as the kids are flipping through channels, briefly, a sponge and a starfish that look quite familiar. And also in Lisa's kindergarten class, there is actually a poster. They have a sponge, which is definitely out of place. I can see debatably the starfish, the crab, and the squid maybe being like, oh, they're just sea animals, but the sponge is very obviously a dish sponge. So a clear reference to SpongeBob in The Loud House. So we've gotten a little bit of a Loud House SpongeBob crossover, slightly. So for The Loud House, like I said, there's so many different things for video games. Also like the Nick Kart Racers again, where Lincoln's also a character with SpongeBob. But not just that, there's also Portal Chase on the Nickelodeon Universe channel, where Lincoln and also SpongeBob are racing. They have TMNT characters in there. It's basically just an all over Nickelodeon Universe dimensional portal. But again, I'm only mentioning it because Loud House doesn't have as much as so many other shows that are on this list. And Hidden New Danger is another show that makes a lot of references. A very modern show, so maybe a lot of you guys haven't actually seen the show, but we're gonna talk about them anyway because we're going through a bunch of them. In the episode Cave In, there's the words FUM, which is a direct reference to the episode Chum Bucket Supreme, where I believe Patrick actually makes the ad campaign, Chum is FUM.
Chum is fun.
So a small little piece that they didn't have to put in there, and I'm not really entirely sure why they made that reference, but either way, I love it. And then back to the danger, Jasper runs to get some batteries and says the words, "Aye, aye, Captain." Which is obviously the intro for the Spongebob SquarePants show itself. And also, I would love to be able to interview one of the kids that did that voice for the "Aye, aye, Captain." That would be incredible. If you know somebody out there who's one of those kids, or you were one of those kids, message me. I would love to do a video with you on the channel. So next up, we're gonna talk about my favorite bald guy, not Tommy. We're gonna be talking about Aang, because I don't think there's actually any Rugrats SpongeBob crossover moments actually that I can think of. Okay, so actually I found one. So there is the Nicktoons Summer Splash, which was hosted by SpongeBob, Patrick, and even Squidward makes some appearances. There is a moment where SpongeBob introduces the next episode, or more of, the Rugrats.
But I think our 30 seconds is up. Here's more Rugrats.
So that is the only time I could really find where SpongeBob actually references the Rugrats directly. And of course, there are video games like the Nickelodeon Tennis and other things for Rugrats where there's appearances with Angelica, SpongeBob, Nicktoons All-Star Brawl has SpongeBob, Nicktoons Racing. But for video games, we could go on forever about all the crossovers they've done. But we were talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. While watching Master Paku train one of his students, you can hear him say that, "Hey, I think you may be strong enough to finally take on a sea sponge."
Nice try, pupil Sangok. A couple of more years and you might be ready to fight a sea sponge.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not a compliment. SpongeBob can take some heat.
Is it too late to go back inside yet?
But considering he is a master waterbender, he may know what he's talking about a little bit. One of my personal favorites is in Ned's Declassified, and I'll never forget watching this when it aired and just flipping out about it. Obviously, you know, in Ned's Declassified, they also had the Fairly Odd Parents who had like a big part in the episode, which is incredible.
Hey, Wanda! I've got an idea! How about we help out Secret Agent Ned?
But in one of the episodes in the school picture day episode, one of the kids can be seen wearing a very, very clean, I might add, SpongeBob costume. So high quality that it had to be some kind of event used one, and was a really, really cool scene to see. Even as a kid, I was mind blown by it. I thought to myself, you can't do that on television. Shout out to all the 40-year-olds who got that too. We love you. One of my favorite ones of all time is from Fanboy and Chum Chum. I know the show gets a lot of heat from a lot of Nickelodeon fans as not being one of their favorites and being a little bit annoying. But personally, I think the animation of that show is really cool. I love some of the character designs, and they also made a reference to my main man, SpongeBob, with the episode titled Fanboy Ahoy, which actually is a reference to SpongeBob Ahoy being the working title for SpongeBob before the show was officially named SpongeBob SquarePants. And in Danger Force Power Problems, we actually have them using one of SpongeBob's iconic time cards.
How hard could it be?
1 week later. They're dead. They're dead, I tell you.
Obviously, Tom Kidd is the French narrator voice, but I don't know if he's the one that did it in the Danger Force episode.
Later.
Okay, after a little bit more research, he did do the voice. In another show that I've never really watched too much of, Nikki, Ricky, Dickie, and Don, in the episode Go to Hollywood, which Drake and Josh also did, you can see a SpongeBob Lego statue in the background with one of the characters also doing their best impersonation of SpongeBob's iconic laugh.
Hey, Ricky and Dickie, are you enjoying your time in Hollywood? Pretty good, huh?
No. You know that's SpongeBob.
Come on, Patrick! I'm sorry I did that, and I will give you time for your cringe and goosebumps to level out there, but try your best at home, and it ain't easy. Shout out to Tom Kidd for being a legend. And probably my favorite one from not even watching this show has got to be from the episode of What's the Worst That Quad Happened, where a grandmother watching the TV ends up saying, that little fellow lives in a pineapple.
That cute little fella lives in a pineapple.
Yes, he does, Grandma. Yes, he does. Yeah, we love it. In Cat Dog, Cliff's Little Secret, there's actually a movie poster that has our main man SpongeBob on it.
What's Cliff doing all by himself? Let's find out. Hey, Cliff!
Which they did not really do him justice to the television version of SpongeBob, but it does kind of look like some of the early artwork for SpongeBob that Steven Hillenburg did in the show Bible when creating the show. And in Hey Arnold, he also made an appearance in the episode Weighing Harold, where you can actually see SpongeBob's name on an album as Arnold's getting distracted by Sid.
He went and holed up in his room. It ain't coming out. He's probably too busy eating.
Which is crazy to think about because Hey Arnold and Cat Dog, their shows were huge at the times that they were on. But none of them could have guessed or expected for SpongeBob to literally be the golden crown of the entire network when it aired and became as big as it is. So it's just cool to see that SpongeBob was on some of those early shows they were referencing him before it even come out. And another reference from a show that is a crossover in itself between iCarly and Victoria's Sam and Kat. In the episode #texting competition, Kat starts to name off all the different things she could do with the speedboat. A couple things are on that list, but number 3 is being able to find SpongeBob's pineapple.
Number 3, look for SpongeBob's pineapple.
Oh man, that would be the first investment I would make is into a speedboat if we could find SpongeBob's pineapple. But I mean, hey, go talk to Jimmy. He seems to know a location. And of course, one of my favorite live action shows growing up was Zoe 101, where there was this little reference to SpongeBob and Patrick within the show.
You think I'm silly?
No, Leif. SpongeBob's friend Patrick is silly.
And considering the show takes place on a school that is all about the beach, it only makes sense they would understand or maybe even know a lot about SpongeBob. And one of the coolest ones from the modern era is Welcome to the Wayne, where the character Equimorph actually morphs into an advertiser-friendly version of SpongeBob.
Obviously, I have to obey some copyright laws, but with a few small changes.
I'm Sponge Robert Rectangle Shorts.
Which as a YouTuber has to deal with copyrights a lot, that should be good, I think. In my opinion, that's fine. But the fun part about it is that it's voiced by Tom Kinney, the man of SpongeBob himself. So I don't know if that would push it to past the line of being copyrighted, but it is owned by Nickelodeon, so obviously it's okay. But a really, really cool one. It has a couple layers to the connection as well. That makes it even cooler. In True Jackson VP, we can actually see a SpongeBob blimp that flies by in the air. And shout out to the Macy Day Parade, who's actually made that happen several times throughout SpongeBob's history. In Victorious, we can see Robbie wearing some SpongeBob underwear.
And Robbie?
Yeah?
SpongeBob underwear?
We're not even gonna talk about how strange Victorious can tend to get, but just to handle that moment, because the only other moment's gonna be like this. Last with the underwears, I'm pretty sure. But the biggest one is in Tori Goes Platinum, where the teacher, Psychwitz, gets mistaken as the voice actor of Plankton, aka Mr. Lawrence, aka Mr. I Dropped My Pencil, aka he went to college, aka I ran out of things to say. Well, actually I didn't, but the video would be too long. But Psychwitz goes with it and actually does his own impersonation of Plankton as well, which I think was not that bad, actually.
Whoa! It's the voice of Plankton.
No, I am not the
voice. Yeah,
I mean, Karen, I must have the secret formula for the Krabby Patty.
Nice, nice.
Okay, so summarizing all of the cartoon-related stuff, though, there was several Nickelodeon bumpers that featured many of them, and they weren't technically crossovers within their shows, but they were bumpers that would go in between episodes where many of them were featured in some of the only ways we can see some characters ever interacting. But I didn't want to add those along with the show list or some of the video game mentions because it's a kind of its own thing. So of course we have several of the Nicktoons animated shorts that they did for Christmas time.
The joint was jumping, the music was pumping, and the whole shindig was catered by Donner and Blitzen.
You had the holiday special where Patrick was essentially Frosty the Snowman.
Birthday happy.
The children loved their new winter friend.
You have the Nickelodeon 12 Days of Nickmas.
On the 12th day of Nickmas, Nicktoons on TV. 12 bubbles blowing.
But the two of my favorites have got to be number 2 being not just cartoons, but Nicktoons, which had many characters appear in that in order to promote Nicktoons.
We're Nicktoons.
Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
But my hands down favorite is the Nick TV launch promo, which is the best one in my opinion because it has SpongeBob leading the charge of the Nicktoons. And it talks about Nicktoons from the start, back at the beginning, and its slow domination throughout the 2000s, and celebrates all the different Nickelodeon characters that worked their way to bring Nickelodeon to where they were. And of course, the one leading that charge would be our main man, the golden child, SpongeBob himself.
In 1991, Nickelodeon spat in the eye of the animation world and launched the Nicktoons. Fresh, original, cutting edge, as only Nicktoons could be.
It's so cool with the promo. SpongeBob's like a military sergeant, kind of commanding the group, and we get a little Nicktoons chant at the end.
We are the Nicktoons. Mighty, mighty Nicktoons. Creator-driven, cutting edge, made fresh tales.
We're gonna finish off all of this with that one because I feel like that's the best one that encompasses the whole point of this video and the love that I have for Nicktoons. And of course, my number 1 favorite show is SpongeBob, so it's so cool to cover all these different shows and all the different references they made to SpongeBob. I love SpongeBob, you love SpongeBob. I don't think I've ever actually met anybody who just doesn't like SpongeBob unless they're lying. Or the only people that don't like SpongeBob haven't tried it. So it's so cool to see that the creators or other people that worked on SpongeBob went on to do their own thing, still reference and talk about SpongeBob, even to the modern day. Like I said, when I was making this list, the list got thicker and heavier as we got into the modern day because a lot of the newer shows like to pull some of the nostalgia from SpongeBob and to hopefully grab onto that same audience. So many of the newer shows reference SpongeBob, even more so than some of the early shows did. When the early shows did it, they mostly did for promotional reasons, whereas a lot of the new shows, it's just direct, blatant mentions of SpongeBob. So the sponge will never die. It seems that SpongeBob will live on forever, and I couldn't be more happy about that as a SpongeBob fan. And as somebody who loves making these videos, I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. It was so much fun covering all this stuff. I'm sure there's small things I missed here and there. I try to cover some of the biggest and most interesting SpongeBob crossovers that we've had throughout all the Nicktoons franchises and also some of the earlier live action shows. Well, any further ado, again, if you guys could smack that like button, I would greatly appreciate it so much. This video took so long to film, and I know it took forever to edit. So if you could hit the like button, I would greatly appreciate it. Share the video with a friend, another Nickelodeon fan. They might find something in here they've never seen before. But not just that, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys haven't already, check out the Patreon where you guys can support even further. For as little as $5, you get a personal video message from me, along with extended versions of this video, and not just this video, but every other video we've been uploading. Go check it out. The link will be down below. And if you guys haven't already, go follow me on Whatnot, where you get $15 off your first purchase. We're doing all types of Nickelodeon fun over on Whatnot every Wednesday and Friday, and the conversations are a blast, so make sure you guys go check that out as well. But I will see you guys over here in this video that I know you're gonna enjoy. But as always, Rat Pack, I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Adios. Bloop.